On this episode of OLTV focused on dementia, we wanted to continue down the trail of understanding the disease better by learning from those who have had first-hand experiences working with family members who struggle with the disease, and learning applicable ways to interact, respond, and take care of our loved ones on their dementia journey.
It's been approximately a 10-year journey with my mother with dementia. She started living, as most of us do, independently in her own home. And then gradually over time, she lost a lot of her skills. She was having a hard time sequencing. I was noticing memory issues. She was leaving pots burning on the stove because she forgot the pot was there. And she was relying more and more as the years progressed on neighbors and friends and myself. I've had to gradually increase my role and responsibility in caring for her to the point where I just thought it's just not safe for her to live in home anymore.
There's so much fear rooted in this idea of getting dementia, because it's associated with, leaving the house and being completely unsafe. And while those are parts of it, that's only part of the disease trajectory if we are not actively recognizing the signs and the symptoms or the differences between normal aging and not normal aging. And there are differences. So normal aging just takes a little bit longer to find your words, to find your names, to find your objects, to process things, just to think. Not normal aging means there's a gap. You've really put things in the wrong place. I can't necessarily remember how it is that I'm supposed to make a dish that I've made 1,000 times before. That literal gap in memory is where, there should be some red flags.
So obviously there's a tendency to rationalize that some form of memory loss associated with aging is normal. And a lot of the skill is deciding whether the memory loss experienced by that individual is the same as everybody else or is diverging. So it really is something that requires some insight, but also the report of others around to get a form on the idea of whether your own memory dysfunction is perhaps greater than might be expected.
So I sold her home, and she lived with various family members, including myself, for a time period. But as her dementia progressed, she really needed more support, more supervision, a safer living environment. She really doesn't have the ability anymore to really advocate for herself or understand and recognize what her needs are. In her mind, she feels she's still very independent and, she'll just go to me if she needs something. But in reality, I do a lot of, and have continued for many years, to do a lot of the background work to support her.
Far too often, families or caregivers in general think that living at their own homes in their own spaces enables a person to live longer and have a better quality of life because it's what they're familiar with. While there is a lot of validity in extending the daily routines for people, and that's really what we replicate at Optima, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is going to work effectively. In order for families to relieve themselves of the stress or to have the best possible relationship with a family member that is experiencing dementia and is headed down that journey, is to have them move into a space where it is that we can replicate the environment, replicate the routines, and help them through that holistic program of social interaction, brain activities, physical activity, sleep quality, and removing the stress of not being able to navigate life in a normal way. The families themselves can have a better relationship, right? It's not so dependent on, oh my goodness, I've got to go and I've got to check on mom, or all of that can be alleviated through the help and support of Optima or of any one of the communities that are providing a good, holistic, meaningful dementia care program.
And I came across Everett Gardens. I hadn't even been aware that they had a memory care unit as my mother is in right now, where she has her own apartment, she has a living room, she has a bedroom, she has this beautiful huge bathroom, great staff. It's a small unit. As soon as I saw it, I thought, I never knew a place like this existed, and right then and there I said yes. And we were very fortunate to be able to get my mom in pretty quickly. It was within a few weeks, which was fantastic.
While we encourage people to move in as early as they can with us, being proactive in their approach, oftentimes that's just not the case. And so people are making the decision to move in or explore the option of moving into one of our memory living environments when it is very much a needs-driven kind of a scenario. So we're at the crisis point. That being said, it makes it a little bit more challenging for that resident or that person to feel at home. It means that we have to work harder at taking that environment and taking that space and making sure that it feels like home, it's familiar.
Optima has been excellent at supporting myself and my family in the process of both my mother moving in. It was a challenge. She is not one of those people who embrace moving to new places. I really worked closely in partnership with the Everett Gardens staff to make the initial move and that transitional period work really well, and we were successful, I'm glad to say.
We're talking about the environment, we're talking about the routines, a person's daily routine, and we're talking about knowing the person. So there's those three aspects that go into welcoming a person home in one of our communities. The environment itself, the space itself, means bringing in the belongings that are familiar to that person. It's with artwork, it's with small pieces of furniture, it's setting the room up so that it supports how that person lives best in their daily routine. Then we layer onto that our capacity to really dig down into how does this person live their day. We don't want people to assimilate to a working environment. We want to assimilate to that person's daily routine. That level of detail, that level of understanding, that level of application in what a daily routine is for the individual helps remove the stress, again, of living in a different environment, but also increases that feeling of home. And the last piece, of course, is knowing the individual themselves, and that is about getting that personal history. We talk to the families where we can, and we talk to the residents, the people themselves. In order for us to know who they are today, we need to know who they were. It's about how do you cope with stressful situations? What does sadness look like for mom? When we understand that, then we understand the person and how they may be responding in any given situation.
The key to all of this is really knowing the person. And where staff, where individuals living with dementia are institutionalised, really knowing the life story to provide good person-centred care. So whatever interventions that might improve quality of life, we should probably introduce intergenerational care, having kids come in to have lunch from the local school. This kind of thing can really bring older adults and those living with dementia out of themselves and provide that extra stimulation to improve the quality of life, really.
The advice I would give others who are going through a similar experience is really research what's out there and what's out there that would best match your parents' needs. Looking at it objectively, what are the best supports, and from your heart, what are the best supports? It's your parent. They're people, they're not objects to place in a place. They have needs, they have wants, they've had a good life, they could still have a good life.
Empathy is a tool used to be able to work with people that have dementia because it allows us to jump into the moment with them. We really need to meet them where they are because how it is that they're feeling in that moment, that's their reality. And in order for us, again, to be able to connect with that individual, in order for us to be able to support that person, we need to meet them where they're at.
Thank you for watching this episode of OLTV. If you enjoyed this and would like to see more amazing senior-focused content, subscribe to the Optima Living YouTube channel.